In the galaxy's darkest corners, where the light of the Jedi barely flickers, the Sith have always thrived. The Sith, an order defined by ambition, passion, and an unyielding hunger for power. But no principle embodies their dark philosophy more than the rule of two. One master to embody power, and one apprentice to crave it. Darth Bane, the visionary who reformed the Sith by establishing the rule of two, believed that the Sith's downfall lay in their greed and infighting. Under his new order, the apprentice would grow strong enough to eventually challenge and destroy the master, ensuring the survival of the Sith through the strongest alone. From these shadows emerged a girl, Darth Zannah. Once a child with a heart full of innocence, she would be molded into a dark force of nature, a weapon of Sith sorcery, and the future master of the Sith. This is her story. Zannahs Origins. Zannah, or Rain as she was known then, lived a simple life on Somov Rit. Born into a family of farmers, her early days were filled with laughter and the closeness of her brother. Little did she know that the winds of war would soon sweep her world into chaos. When the war between the Sith and Jedi reached Ruusan, Rain's world was turned upside down. The deaths of her family left her adrift, alone and vulnerable. In the chaos of battle, the dark side called to her. She felt its pull, and it ignited something deep within her, a seed of rage. It was on this battlefield that Darth Bane found her. He sensed the dormant power within the young girl. Where others might have seen weakness, Bane saw potential, a potential to reshape the Sith in his image. Rain would become Zannah, apprentice to one of the greatest Sith lords in history. Becoming a Sith apprentice. As Bane's apprentice, Zannah was thrust into a world where fear was a tool and power was the only goal. Darth Bane had no patience for weakness. He was ruthless in his teachings, pushing Zannah beyond her limits. The rule of two dictated that only the strong survive, and Bane would ensure she was strong enough to one day challenge him. Zannah's training was unlike anything the Jedi could comprehend. Bane not only taught her to wield a lightsaber with deadly precision, but also to master the dark arts of Sith sorcery. She was a natural at manipulating fear, conjuring illusions that could drive even the strongest minds to madness. But the path of the Sith was not without its trials. Zannah wrestled with her humanity. The pain of her past and the horrors of war weighed on her soul. Yet, each step she took toward the dark side distanced her further from the girl she once was. Her power grew, and so did her understanding of the Sith's true nature. Rising darkness, Zannah's growth and training. Years passed, and Zannah's power grew with each day. Under Darth Bane's relentless guidance, she honed her abilities, both physical and mental. While many Sith were masters of brute strength and sheer violence, Zannah's true potential lay in the subtle arts of Sith sorcery. She became a master of manipulation, illusion, and mind control, abilities that few could counter. Her specialty was creating illusions so powerful they could turn the bravest of Jedi into quivering wrecks. Her ability to tap into the darkest aspects of the Force allowed her to manipulate the minds of her enemies, making them see horrors that weren't real but felt terrifyingly tangible. Though Bane never said it, Zannah knew that her growth was not only for her benefit, but also to prepare her for the inevitable moment when she would need to strike him down. The rule of two was absolute. Only the strongest should rule. Yet, Bane was far from ready to give up his power. Meanwhile, Bane himself began to seek immortality, fearing that Zannah would one day become strong enough to overthrow him. His obsession with finding a way to preserve his life made him vulnerable in ways he didn't realize. Zannah observed this, and in her heart, a seed of ambition began to grow. Zannah's missions were not just tests of power, they were tests of cunning. Bane had taught her that brute force was only one path to victory. True mastery came from controlling the battlefield before the fight even began. Zannah's strategic mind became her greatest weapon, allowing her to outthink and outmaneuver her enemies before they even realized they were in danger. Zannah's control over the dark side grew with every confrontation. Unlike other Sith who reveled in raw power, Zannah preferred the elegance of control. She could make others dance to her will, pulling strings from the shadows like a puppet master wielding fear and illusion. But with her growing power came a deeper understanding of her place within the rule of two. Zannah knew that one day she would have to challenge Bane, and for the Sith to continue, she would need to be the one who survived. Bane's strength was fading, but he was still dangerous. Zannah would need to be patient, cunning, and most of all, prepared. Crucial missions and conflict with the Jedi. As Zannah grew in power, so too did the number of enemies she faced. Bane, recognizing her potential, sent her on missions where she would come face to face with the Jedi, knowing that only by defeating their light could she fully embrace the dark side. These confrontations tested not just her physical strength, but also her resolve and mastery over Sith sorcery. In her battles against the Jedi, Zannah relied on more than just her lightsaber. Her sorcery allowed her to reach into the minds of her opponents, warping their perception of reality and making them see their worst fears. A Jedi's greatest weakness, she had learned, was not their lack of power, but their attachment to the light. Fear, pain, and loss. These were tools Zannah used with deadly precision. Her mastery of illusion became her signature. She could create phantom armies and shadows of herself that fought alongside her, confusing her enemies and leaving them vulnerable to her true strikes. Many Jedi underestimated Zannah because she did not rely on brute strength, but her cleverness and mastery of the mind made her even more dangerous. Even as Zannah proved herself in battle, her thoughts kept returning to the inevitable confrontation with Bane. Each battle against the Jedi brought her closer to the realization that she was ready to challenge him. Yet, Bane was still her master, and the rule of two dictated that she could not strike until she was certain of victory. Even Bane could feel the tension building. His obsession with immortality had begun to show cracks in his once unshakable focus. Zannah sensed this weakness. Yet, Bane was far from vulnerable. His power remained formidable, and any attempt to challenge him too soon would lead to her destruction. Zannah's patience, however, was a weapon in its own right. In one of her most dangerous missions, Zannah was sent to confront not just a single Jedi, but an entire group of Jedi Masters. The battle was relentless, and for a moment, it seemed that even Zannah's skills might not be enough. But this was when she showed her true mastery. Instead of engaging the Jedi head-on, she wove a web of illusions so intricate that the Jedi became lost in a maze of their own minds. Her victory against the Jedi was a turning point. Zannah had proven not only to Bane, but also to herself that she was ready. The power she wielded was no longer just potential, it was a reality. With each passing day, she became more certain that she would one day overthrow her master. The turning point. Zannah's Ambition. The moment had finally come. Zannah, now fully aware of her power, began to see herself not just as an apprentice, but as the future Sith Master. Bane had taught her everything she needed to know, and now his usefulness had come to an end. The rule of two dictated that the apprentice must challenge the master, and Zannah knew that the time for her rise was approaching. Bane's obsession with prolonging his life had become his weakness. Where once he had been focused on the grand vision of the Sith's survival, he was now consumed by his fear of death. Zannah saw this and recognized it as her advantage. Her mind was clear, her ambitions unclouded by fear. She would rise, and Bane would fall. The final battle, Master versus Apprentice.
Get ready for the next battle.
It was inevitable. The moment that Darth Bane and Darth Zannah had both prepared for since the day he took her as his apprentice. The rule of two dictated that this was the only path forward. Either the apprentice would surpass the master, or the Sith would stagnate and weaken. Zannah had grown powerful, and now the time had come to prove herself. Bane, calmly? Are you ready, Zannah? You know the consequences of failure. Zannah, with resolve. I am ready, Master. The rule of two cannot be denied. The tension in the room is palpable. The dark side swirls around them, crackling in the air as both Sith prepare for the confrontation. Zannah's mind is a tempest of dark energy, her mastery of Sith sorcery and illusions at its peak. Bane, though older, remains a physical force of nature, his raw power formidable even now. The chamber became a battlefield of wills before a single blow was struck. Bane knew Zannah's strength had grown over the years, but he was still the Dark Lord of the Sith, a master of the dark side. His power had not diminished, but Zannah's mastery of sorcery and her cunning had given her the advantage. It would be a battle unlike any other, a fight not only of lightsabers, but of the very essence of the dark side. Bane ignites his lightsaber. the red blade illuminating his fearsome figure. Zannah follows, her yellow blade blazing to life. The two Sith stare each other down, their gazes locked. The force ripples as the first blow is struck. Bane lunges forward with blinding speed, and Zannah barely blocks his strike in time. Bane struck first, his attack a blur of motion and power. Zannah parried, but she knew she could not rely on brute strength to defeat him. Bane was stronger, faster, and more experienced. But Zannah had her own weapons, her mind, her sorcery, and her unshakable determination. The duel is a whirlwind of flashing lightsabers, their strikes sending shockwaves through the chamber. As the physical battle rages, Zannah begins to weave her Sith sorcery into the fight, her free hand subtly gesturing as she conjures illusions. As their lightsabers clashed, Zannah called upon her greatest strength, Sith sorcery. She reached into the dark side, weaving illusions that began to take form around Bane. Shadows twisted and stretched, phantoms of Zannah appeared in his peripheral vision, all striking at him in unison. Bane fought back furiously, but he was battling not just one opponent, but many. Bane's face tightens in concentration as he realizes what Zannah is doing. He lashes out with the Force, breaking through the illusions, but more keep coming, each more disorienting than the last. Zannah presses her advantage, pushing Bane to his limits. Bane was no stranger to the power of the dark side, but Zannah's mastery of sorcery was unlike anything he had faced before. Each illusion she conjured grew more real, more terrifying. He lashed out with the Force, trying to dispel them, but they kept coming, each one attacking his mind as well as his body. Bane roars in frustration, releasing a massive wave of dark side energy that shatters the illusions momentarily, sending Zannah skidding back. He glares at her, his strength undiminished, his fury palpable. Bane snarling, "You think your tricks will save you, Zannah? You are nothing without real power." Zannah rises, unfazed, her eyes cold and calculating. She has anticipated this and knows that brute force alone won't win this battle. Instead, she focuses on what Bane fears most, his own mortality. Zannah calmly, "Power comes in many forms, Master. You fear what you cannot control, you fear me." Zannah delves deeper into the dark side, summoning an even more powerful illusion. This time, Bane is surrounded by visions of his greatest fear, his own death. The shadows twist into horrific images of his downfall, each one more vivid than the last. He fights back, but the fear begins to claw at him, weakening his defenses. Zannah struck at Bane's deepest fear, his own death. She conjured visions of his defeat, his destruction, images so vivid that even Bane, in all his power, could not shake them. For the first time, the Dark Lord of the Sith felt the cold grip of fear, and it was Zannah who had placed it there. Bane, his face a mask of fury, charges at Zannah with renewed aggression. His lightsaber strikes are more powerful than ever, but Zannah is calm, deflecting them with precision and using the Force to anticipate his moves. She knows she has him now. Bane's attacks became more frantic, more desperate. He fought with all the fury of a Sith Lord, but Zannah was no longer the apprentice. She was the master of this battle, and she could see the cracks in Bane's defenses. His fear was his undoing, and Zannah exploited it with deadly precision. In the final moments of the duel, Zannah unleashes a devastating combination of lightsaber strikes and Sith sorcery. Bane falters, his strength failing him as Zannah presses her advantage. With one final blow, she disarms him, sending his lightsaber clattering across the floor. With a final strike, Zannah disarmed her master. Bane, once the unchallenged Dark Lord of the Sith, now stood before her defeated. But the battle was not yet over. Bane had one last gambit, the ancient Sith ritual to transfer his essence into Zannah's body. Bane, unwilling to accept defeat, began the ritual to transfer his essence into Zannah. His spirit attacked her mind, trying to overpower her will and take control of her body. But Zannah was ready. She had prepared for this moment, and she met his assault with unbreakable resolve. In the end, it was Zannah's strength of will that prevailed. Bane's essence faltered and was consumed by the dark side. The Dark Lord of the Sith was no more, and Zannah stood victorious. The new master of the Sith Order. Zannah's Legacy. Zannah, now the undisputed Dark Lord of the Sith, stands alone in the ancient temple. Her face is calm, but her eyes reflect the cold, calculating mind that has just defeated her master. She gazes down at Bane's fallen form for a moment, then turns and walks away, her cloak billowing behind her. Darth Zannah, the apprentice who had once been a child lost in the chaos of war, was now the Dark Lord of the Sith. She had done what the Rule of Two demanded. She had surpassed her master, and in doing so, ensured the survival of the Sith. But Zannah's journey was far from over. She would now take on the mantle of master, and with it, the burden of finding her own apprentice. With Bane gone, Zannah turned her thoughts to the future. The Rule of Two was clear. She would need to find an apprentice, someone who could one day challenge her, just as she had challenged Bane. But Zannah was patient. She would not rush this decision. The Sith had survived for centuries in the shadows, and they would continue to do so under her careful guidance. Zannah's reign as the Dark Lord of the Sith would be defined by patience, cunning, and a deep understanding of the dark side. She knew that the Sith's true strength lay not in brute force, but in subtlety, in manipulation, and in the slow, calculated rise to power. Under her rule, the Sith would continue to grow in secret, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And so the Sith endured. Darth Zannah, the master who had once been the apprentice, carried the torch of the dark side into the future. The Rule of Two remained unbroken, and the legacy of Darthbane lived on through her. But the story of the Sith was far from over. Zannah's time as the Dark Lord was only the beginning, and the galaxy would soon feel the full weight of the dark side once again. The dark side is patient. It waits, and it grows. The Sith will rise again.